Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to show you a couple of projects I've done with the new Simon Hurley release, the Darling Dahlias background stamp and pull-apart stamp. Here's a couple of examples and I'll show you how I've done these. Let's go ahead and get started. All right, welcome back. All right, so what we're going to do today is we are going to use the background pull-apart stamp set, Darling Dahlias. I'm going to use some dies and I'm going to use this little bird stamp set. I want to say, I can't recall its name, but I will list it in the description box below. I think I held it up too fast for me to be able to see what it is. What is it? Nope, I can't see it. Spread your wings. There we go. Spread your wings. And I'm going to be using my Zig Clean color markers to color in the dahlias. And I'll just show you a couple of pieces that I did. This one I did using a lighter color of ink for the background and that used only the pale colors. So it almost looks like it's covered with vellum. And then I did bright colors for the flowers that I cut out with the die cuts. And this one I used yellow and orange, mostly yellow and green. And then this is the brightly colored one, and we're going to be working on the bright colored one today. You can see that I split apart the little lovebirds so that I had enough to make 2 cards. So there's always that. So I want to first move my Zig markers out of the way, grab my stamp platform, and grab my stamp. I'm going to be using Bristol Smooth cardstock for this. I found that it blends better with regard to the Zig markers. Now, depending on what you're using to color with is a, a good way to make a choice for your paper. But I want to use my Zig markers to color these in because I love the way that they'll gradiate on this paper. They don't do it on all paper. I can tell you that from experience, and you'll see later in the video, because I do use Simon Stark White and they just don't blend as well. So yeah, I want good blending. So I'm just going to lay my stamp in my stamp platform, and I've used my amazing mat from scrapbook.com, so my paper is going to stay stuck to it and not move around. And I'm just going to use my VersaFine Clair in Nocturne and stamp down these dahlias. And I obviously need to re-ink my inker, my ink pad, but I realized when I went to re-ink it this morning that I had about 2 drops left of my re-inker, so I have some more on order. Meanwhile, I'll just deal with it, right? Because you want a nice juicy ink to do something like this. But you could use any ink you want as long as it's waterproof if you're using Zig markers. If you're going to color it with alcohol markers, then you'll want to use like the Hero Arts Intense Black or something like that. Or I think Gina K Amalgam also works for alcohol markers. I'm not an alcohol marker person, so I'm going to defer to my alcohol marker experts for that. I prefer working with water. So I'm going to stamp this down more than once, and you're going to need to. Anytime you have a large background stamp like this, if you get that stamp in one go, I'm so proud of you, because there's a lot of area to cover, and you're going to need pressure in all those areas. And then if you have any issues, my Misty, about a year ago, the top hinge broke. And so it doesn't really work as well as I wish it would, but that's okay. It still works, so I'll live with it. I bought something new from Altenew, and I'll show you once I get it. I think they're supposed to be released on the 20th of March. I did pre-order the stamp wheel, which I'm excited about. So I'm just bending my mat so that I can get my paper off, and then I'm going to just take a little squirt of water onto my rag and just clean off the excess ink here. And put the little cover back on, which I'm not always real good about because I end up losing them, dropping them on the floor, running over them with my chair, you know the deal. And here's the trick, because this is a pull-apart stamp and I've already used its pull-apart parts. Yeah, that's a mouthful. I'm trying to get this off in one fell swoop without dropping any stamps on the floor. Because you know how they'll do. They'll just bounce right away and be gone. At least that's the case with me. It'll bounce. And yeah, you have to ask yourself, if you tried to bounce something that way, would it go that way? No. But because it's a rubber stamp, it will bounce. So let's get the platform out of the way and we'll start coloring. And I'm going to color the whole piece and then I'll trim it down after I've colored it. And I'll color the first one on camera and then I'll complete the coloring off camera because it's repetitive and there's no point. You know, there's nothing fancy about it. If there were some fancy maneuvers and tricks, by golly, I'd show them to you. So I'm using a dark yellow, a pale yellow, a dark pink, a pale pink, a dark orange, a pale orange, and a dark green and a pale green. And sipping my coffee. Sorry about that. It's still morning here, I think. Well, it's almost 11 o'clock. I've been at this, though, since about 6 o'clock this morning, so it feels like morning. I don't know. Time flies when you're having fun, right? Time flies on your day off. What I'm doing here is just laying a piece of plain paper down and blotting to make sure there's no excess ink on there. And I want to be sure that that ink's dry because yellow will notoriously bleed. And I don't want the bleeding. So, but I'm not going to start with yellow. I'm going to start with the pale orange. And I'm just going to rough color in this flower with the pale orange. Now you could heat emboss these first if you wanted to. But I find that my colors don't want to blend the way I want them to if I've heat embossed because of that resistance. And I can never get not embossing powder on a spot. So you know how it won't color on top of the embossing powder. So I avoid that unless it doesn't matter. And all I'm doing is just tracing around the outside edge. Now I'm being a little bit more careful here around the outside edges just because, well, they're the outside edges. It doesn't have to be perfect by any means, but I'd like to get it pretty close. I just want to do these Darling Dahlias justice. Okay, so I've got my two colors. Now I'm going to go back to the pale orange, and I'm just going to blend the two oranges together here with the pale orange. And I'm going to grab a little piece of paper off to the side because you start to pick up a lot of that dark orange on that brush. And just brush off my brush and then come in from the center and go outward. That way I get a really nice gradation. I'll color the rest of these off camera for you. Alright, so I've got them all colored and I'm ready to trim it down because it is, my bristle smooth when I cut it is 6 by 4.5. So I need this to be 4 by 5 1/4. And there's going to be some excess pieces there that you could use, you know, for the inside of the card or, you know, whatever. It's your card. Do it how you want. So I'm kind of just picking and choosing where I trim. I hate to trim any of it. Honestly, I could make a bigger card if I wanted to. There's no rule that says you need to make 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And, you know, this is a 6 by 6 stamp. You can make a 6 by 6 card if you want to. You could make a mini slimline. You could repeat the pattern and make a whole slimline. Entirely up to you. It's your card. All right, let's get this trimmer out of the way and start working on the next part of the process. So I am using a kind of a centerpiece here, and I have my ovals here. These are my infinity dies from Hero Arts, and I have the ones that I want to use flip the other way so I'll remember because I want to make a matte layer and a main layer. And I'm going to go ahead and cut out 2 ovals. I'm not going to try and make a frame because I'm horrible at it. There's that. I think I can fit 2 of these, and I'm going to grab a piece of watercolor cardstock. This is just my El Cheapo watercolor. So it's also 6 inches because the when I quarter it, that's how it ends up being. I'm going to grab a piece of mint tape and just kind of tape them down. I want to make sure they're not on top of each other. And I'll take them over to my Vagabond and cut them out. All right, there's the magic. And want to get those pieces of mint tape off of there. It comes off pretty easily. When it's smushed down, it's not as easy to get off. And if you use, like I'll use this more than once on a die, and on an intricate die, it'll gets stuck to the die, and it's really hard to get out. I call it a fingernail wrecker, but I digress. I'm going to direct to paper, smoosh down some guppy ink. Now I like to do it this way because I'm going to be putting lunar paste over it with the new Guppy lunar paste, but I like to make sure that I've got full coverage. And so let me just wipe off this mess here so I don't get ink on things I don't want ink on, which is, you know, typical and normal of me. I'm going to grab my Guppy lunar paste, and I'm just going to use my finger to spread it on here. So I want that extra shine. And you see the color matches perfectly. And I don't mind if it gets a little bit of texture or even fingerprints in it, but I don't want any missed spots. I'm just going to go over it, and then I'll be setting it aside to dry. So there, it's moving around on me. Try and spread it a little bit better. It's going to have that gorgeous shine. I'm just going to pick it up and move it out of the way so I can clean up my mess. And I like to grab just an alcohol wipe, but I'm going to put a little bit of water on here too, and kind of just get my finger in that water. And just kind of, I don't know, clean this off a bit. So this, I actually end up using a paper towel, but an alcohol wipe will get this stuff right off quickly. I don't know what that is, little booger. Now I want my outer ring to be pink, bright pink. And I'm going to go ahead and use the coordinating, or the same pink that I used in the card. And I only need to paint the outside edge, because the orange one is going to go right on top of it. So I'm just coloring around the outside edge with that really, really hot pink. You could use Prom Queen for this. It would be, this color is almost the exact same color as Prom Queen. That's why I picked it. So I bought 120 sets, so they'll match just about everything. So I'll show you how this is going to look, and I'm going to get my fingerprint in it, and that's that. Because typical me, right? And that's how that's going to look. So now I just need to do my focal point. Let me move stuff aside again. Clean off that ink. Yeah, I guess it's ink. I'm not sure what's in those Zig pens. Some sort of fluid. Some sort of colored pigmented fluid. No problem. Just clean it up so I don't spread it everywhere, because I really don't want to get any pink on my little bird. I'm going to get back out my stamping platform and pull off the backer sheet, and I think it's on there now. I don't know, today's the next day. And I'm going to lay my paper down here, and I'm using Bristol Smooth for this as well. Let's see how well this stamps, because I think I really have a hard time with stamping this. So I'm grabbing the birds and making sure that my paper, my birds will cover my paper. Yeah, the first one didn't stamp well. I had bleeding and stuff, so I moved on to Simon Hurley's Stark White cardstock, because I know stuff will stamp well on there. It's funny, different types of paper, what they'll do or not do. Just going to go ahead and give it some good pressure. I love these two birds. I don't know what I'm pointing at. I love Lamp. Yeah, you'll only get that if you're an Anchorman fan, which I am. I love some Will Ferrell. He's so funny. All right, let's move those aside. Let's clean off my birds. Okay, sorry about all that buzzing there. So I was getting my notification that somebody that I admire was live. So I took off and let me get back to where I was. Here are my birds. And I'm just going to heat set the Versamark ink so that, or actually it's VersaFine, yeah. So that they don't smear, because again, I'm going to be using yellow. So I'm pretty much coloring the birds the same way. And this is the one that I didn't like. You probably can't see it from here, but it bled a bit and I didn't like the bleeding. So I'm just kind of, you know, blotting this off. And I'm going to start out with the light yellow, of course, the same as I did before. And I've got this sped up pretty fast. Then going in with the darker yellow. And you can see here that it blends okay, but it doesn't blend as well as I wish it would. So there's that. It takes a lot more moisture because this paper is just a little bit thirstier, so it kind of sucks up that ink before it, you know, it kind of soaks it in where you want it to kind of sit on top for a second so you can blend it. But I'm still, all in all, happy with it. So there's that. And I'm going to be coloring the branches green as well as the leaves, and a lot of them I'll be cutting off just because well, they're tiny for one thing, and I am hand fussy cutting this thing. So I'm doing the same. I'm just using the darker yellow to kind of contour the little bird, and then the pale yellow to sort of help it blend best I can. Do his little beak. I'm going to cut off that little top notch too. And then I'm not going to go crazy with these leaves and branches. I'm just going to do them in green. They can be green at springtime, and then there they go, cutting them right in half. And then I'm going to fussy cut both the birds out. All right, I've got my birds cut out here, and I'm just going to take a this Tombow pen, and I'm going to make a fake line right there at the end of that branch so that it looks finished. And then I'm just going to go around all the edges where it was really, really tiny and fill in with the black. And when I'm on a small, like flimsy piece like that, I just set my piece down and pray while I'm coloring. That I don't slip. It happens. You slip. You start over. That's all. So we're just going to do this bird today because of an interest of time. So I've got my little pieces here, and you see that's still wet. Let's give it a little bit time to dry. Give it a little bit of help. I had that one thick spot that I had to go over because I got my fingerprint in it. And at this point, I'm like, it doesn't matter. I'll put that part under the bird. So here, what I have is just a piece of vellum because I need to do my sentiment. And I'm going to use Have a Beautiful Day. And I'm just going to be hand stamping that, but I want to grab the smaller oval because I want to trim this out and kind of use it to act as a template. And I am going to use a little bit of anti-static powder. We'll see how that works out, right? Is what it is. And just again using the VersaFine Clair, and then I'm going to heat emboss that. But guess what? Yep, it happens to all of us. I missed. Let me see if I can fix it. Nope, can't fix it. Start over. It happens. You just go on your merry way and do it again. There we go. Much happier with that. Then I've got my clear embossing powder, and then I didn't do anti-static powder. I forget all the time. It's just part of who I am. I'll go ahead and heat emboss that, and then I'm going to cut that out with this oval so that it matches and sits properly on the oval ahead of it, under it. You know those words that are hard to say. And I don't need the whole piece, so I'm just going to kind of measure here what I need, lay out my oval, tape it down, and cut it out in my Vagabond. All right, we've got that cut out. Now I don't want it that tall either, so I'm going to trim that off. Just kind of eyeballing where I want everything to sit. I want to trim that right about above the hava. And I'm trying to decide, am I going to trim it normal or am I going to decal trim it? I'm going to decal trim it. Just to add a little character, although you probably won't see most of it. And just kind of right above the hava. I don't know where that came from. The stray push pin. I don't know. So I'm trying to decide how I want to glue that on. And first I'm going to go ahead and glue this top piece to its matte layer after I battle with my glue. And this is watercolor paper and it's a little warpy, so I want to make sure I get plenty of glue on there. We'll just glue this right on top. And I'm not going to do a whole bunch of dimension on this card because yeah, I want to be able to send it. So this is kind of how my layout's going to be. How am I going to glue this down? Let me think. I tried it with glue just behind the letters and I really didn't like that. You know what? I have a little Xyron that I have no experience with. Let me see if I can figure out how to work this thing. I mean, I've seen people do it, but whenever I try it, my stuff just falls apart. So you put it there apparently and then you just pull. Oh, derp. That was pretty easy. I don't know why I had to complicate things there. Okay, so then what? You peel this clear stuff off. That's what it says. Let me see if I can find a place to peel it from. Okay, that's fine. And then I imagine, just like my sticky dots, it leaves a sticky on the back side. Sure enough. All right, let's go ahead and just lay this down onto the piece with the lunar paste on it. We'll have a beautiful day, and then let's go ahead and assemble this thing. So I think what I'll do first is I'll put my background down onto a card base. So let me find one of my card bases here. And I make my own card bases. Buy my paper mostly at Michael's. I think I already said Recollections, like when it's on, is it Recollections? Whatever, Michael's brand. When it's on sale, buy one, get one. I buy the 110 in those 4-color packs. And I think I like the light green for this. And then, you know, one day when I'm not feeling super creative, I'll just sit and cut card bases and fold them. And, you know, that way I've got plenty to work with and plenty of colors to choose from. And you know very well, if there isn't a color you want, you can make the color you want using your ink. All right, we've got that down. And then I'm going to put this down flat as well. I will pop my bird up. Just a little bit. Okay, get that kind of centered. Happy with that. Give it a little push. And let's see, bird. Bird, bird, bird. How are you going to sit? I'm just going to kind of straighten him out a little bit here. And I'm going to grab some foam tape. And I think I'm going to be using this skinny 1/8 inch. Yeah, this is kind of my go-to. In fact, I just ordered a whole bunch more from scrapbook.com because I use it a lot. Just because I work with a lot of small things. So I'll go ahead and lay some on the tail. And the reason I unwrapped it is so if you take the backing off of both sides, then it'll bend a lot easier for you. So I can kind of get it around that curve. Let me grab a whole new piece, and then just what I don't use, I put back on the paper. And those small pieces sticking up, I'm just going to let them stick up. It is what it is. All right, lay that guy back down. And sometimes I forget that other piece is sticky. I get my finger stuck to it. All right, kind of figure where I want him, commit, and there we have our beautiful day, beautiful card with the shiny lunar paste and the new Dahlia, Darling Dahlias background peel apart stamp. There's a lot of cool stuff that you can do with these peel apart stamps because there's a coordinating die set. And so here's my yellow one, and that's where I use the second half of the bird. And kind of, you know, used a piece, one of the cut apart pieces, and cut it out with the die. I loved that one with just the yellow and green. I thought it was cool. And these are the dahlias. If you cut them out with because they come with an inner piece to cut out. Aren't those cool? I haven't decided what I'm going to do with them yet. I'm still thinking on something creative that I can make with those. I can't wait to see what everybody else makes with them, just to kind of get ideas and inspiration. Yeah, there's that leaf part that I put right there. And it is not popped up. There's a smaller leaf too. This one I did, I stamped it with Slippery When Wet first and then colored it with the yellows. And the Slippery When Wet just went really nicely with both the green and the yellow colors. So that's why I chose that. And it gives it a lightness. And again, these I colored in the same way, but I cut them out. And I have them popped up on a piece of vellum. You can't even see the vellum. And the background looks like vellum. So I thought that was an interesting take on a two-tone type card. Anyway, there's our cards. This is my first one that I did, and I did that one with just the Roar ink. And I decided that I really wanted to showcase some of that lunar paste. So I've got 2 extra cards. Anyway, if you like this video, I hope you'll give me a thumbs up. And if you're not already subscribed to my channel, please consider subscribing. And hit that notification bell if you want to be notified every time I make a new video. Thanks so much for coming and hanging out. Bye-bye.